Pay attention to Allie Costello. 21 years old, she arrived at the rendezvous point in the Oxford town area where Ole Miss University is located. She had less than 2 hours to live. Because Brandon Thesefeld, 22, a quiet student from Fort Worth, was waiting. He had planned this moment. He had searched the internet for methods. He had decided that the problem she represented needed to disappear permanently. On this day, when the results of her home pregnancy test were inconclusive, Allie was still very anxious and wanted to meet Brandon to talk. She dreamed of finally becoming his serious girlfriend, maybe even the mother of his child. On this day, Brandon had already driven home to Texas to retrieve a .40 caliber pistol, posting a chilling message on social media with a photo of the weapon. This is the story of a night that changed everything.
Police came to the door and they told us there had been a homicide and that she was the victim.
Allie Costello was magnetic. At Ole Miss, she'd found her place, the preppy Southern campus life she'd dreamed about back home in St. Louis. She loved football, Saturdays, beach-themed decor, and capturing the perfect sunset for her Instagram account, Sunsets by Allie. Her smile was constant, her spirit unbreakable.
Allie, what are you doing? Taking a picture for Sunsets by Allie. Follow it.
In July of 2019, she was living the life she'd always imagined. Marketing major, sorority sister, best friends who felt like family. She had everything ahead of her.
She was like my sister. Allie got along with everyone. She was very bubbly and spirited. She always had a smile on her face.
She had no idea that the boy she'd been texting all evening was driving toward her with a .40 caliber pistol and a plan. On paper, Brandon Thesefeld was unremarkable. Doctor's son from Fort Worth, soccer player, Christian upbringing, clean record. But beneath that surface, something darker was taking shape. He'd spent the past week Googling how to get away with crimes and researching Ted Bundy. He'd posted a chilling photo on social media, his pistol with the caption, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." Allie thought he was coming to talk about their relationship. She had no idea she was being hunted. It was fairly late that Friday night when Allie decided to go out to the square, where all the bars clustered in downtown Oxford. This wasn't unusual for her. She often went out alone and met up with friends. She took an Uber there, spent the evening out, and eventually headed home alone. What investigators would later discover left them shaken. Around 1:30 in the morning on Saturday, July 20th, Brandon picked Allie up. They drove 30 miles from campus, deep into the darkness surrounding Sardis Lake. The location wasn't random. It was calculated. Sardis Lake sprawls across the Mississippi countryside, dotted with hunting camps and recreational spaces. The sheriff's department patrols when they can, but at night, especially in the remote areas, you're in pitch black darkness. Nothing around you, no houses, no witnesses, just silence. Deputies on routine patrol that morning found something that would haunt them forever.
When you got there, what did you find?
A white female laying on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds to her back.
When the ambulance crew drove in, they noticed a purse in the road ditch. Inside, they found Allie's Ole Miss ID card and driver's license. Lieutenant Michael East from the Panola County Sheriff's Department made the call that every parent dreads. This is Michael East at the Panola County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling in regards to a friend of yours, Allie Costello. Morgan Hall, Allie's best friend, saw the missed call later. The police came to Cindy and Keith Costello's door in St. Louis. They told them there had been a homicide. Allie was the victim. "I still don't believe it," Cindy would say years later. And here we are.
Police came to the door and they told us there had been a homicide and that she was the victim.
Investigators rushed to Allie's apartment. Her phone was missing, but they found her Apple Watch. Even without her phone present, some messages had synced to the watch. What they found there started to tell a story of desperation, hope, and manipulation. The hardest thing was going back and reading her messages. The sheer volume, the one-sided nature of the conversations, the pleading, the heinousness of the crime itself struck everyone. She'd been struck multiple times, maybe more. The pattern was calculated, with shell casings scattered in an arc around a picnic table. Someone had circled her as she tried to escape, firing with every step she took. In investigators' minds, the motive was clear: get rid of a problem. District Attorney Ben Creekmore would later call it a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. 3 years earlier, Allie had arrived at Ole Miss with stars in her eyes. She wanted the full college experience at a large university with a highly ranked football team. She loved the preppy life, pearls, sundresses, sorority mixers. Friends say she even hoped to meet a Southern boy, get married, and have children one day. She thought Ole Miss would be the perfect setting to meet her companion for life, her mother Cindy recalled. By junior year, Allie had found her tribe. Morgan Hall became one of her closest friends. They were both marketing majors, both rearranging dorm furniture constantly, both living their best lives. Elizabeth Brock met Allie at a campus party. They bonded instantly over being from St. Louis. How did we not meet until now? They'd laughed. Allie's passion project was photography, specifically sunsets. Her Instagram account documented the stunning Mississippi skies she never tired of capturing. But there was something else Allie wanted. During freshman year, Allie met Brandon Thesefeld at a local bar. He was from Fort Worth, Texas, a detail that excited Allie, who loved everything about the Lone Star State.
A guy that was cute, that she was starting to like, had a crush on.
Cindy remembered. Allie was head over heels. She invited him to most of her sorority date parties. Friends say she took him as her +1 constantly. But something was off. When Maddie Norris, Allie's best friend from high school, came to visit Oxford, she was excited to finally meet this mysterious Brandon. He never showed up, never came around. Maddie watched her friend's disappointment and felt concerned that something about the relationship wasn't quite right. Morgan Hall's experience was even stranger. I never met him, she said. Even Elizabeth, another close friend, never met him. When Brandon was arrested for Allie's murder, they didn't even know his last name. It's so odd that we were her best friends and we still really didn't even know him that well, Morgan reflected. Brandon was a ghost in Allie's life, present in her heart and her text messages, but absent everywhere else. According to Brandon's attorney, Tony Freese, the relationship was casual from Brandon's perspective. They dated casually during freshman year. From Brandon's standpoint, it was a casual, intimate relationship. They were never boyfriend and girlfriend. But Allie saw something more. She saw potential. She saw forever. During sophomore year, things got complicated. Brandon actually blocked Allie's phone number because she texted him too much late at night when she was out drinking and partying. The rejection devastated her. By junior year, they reconnected. Allie thought this meant something. Brandon did not. Forensic psychologist Chris Mohandy, who reviewed the case, identified a dangerous imbalance. These lengthy, pretty much one-sided conversations that were initiated by Allie with very little in return from Brandon make this a very lopsided investment into this relationship. Brandon was communicating just enough for one purpose, to keep Allie on the sidelines while maintaining access to her. In April of 2019, 3 months before her death, Allie sent Brandon a photo. It was a home pregnancy test showing a very faint blue line. Like it's a very faint blue line, but I don't know. She texted, I guess I can wait and see if my period comes. Brandon's response was immediate and cold. Well, all right, we will see, but if it is pregnant, we are not keeping. We can take care of it medically. Allie was conflicted. I'm not saying what I am going to do because I don't know what's happening. But even if you don't want to be involved, like I am really pretty and sweet and I know I will meet a real man one day. Brandon's reply revealed everything about how he saw the situation. I'm serious. No kid at all. It will ruin my life. For weeks, Allie tried to get Brandon to meet her, to talk about this in person. He made promises he never kept. I will come over tonight and we can talk about this, he'd text, then never show up. Investigators later discovered Brandon had been Googling mother wants kid, father does not shortly after receiving the pregnancy test photo. Allie's friends Morgan and Elizabeth knew about the situation. She came to us right away, they said. So in your mind, if she was pregnant, she would have had the baby, they were asked. She would have given it the world, honestly, Morgan replied. The text messages reveal Allie's desperation. She sent Brandon lengthy messages at all hours. On April 15th at midnight, she wrote about drinking heavily all weekend. I lived it up this weekend and was intoxicated 24/7. I did that so my body might decide, haha, no, not today. 2 hours later at 2 a.m, I thought about it. If you want to talk to me in person, that would be better. Brandon responded almost 9 hours later. I can talk tomorrow. I'm busy today. I'm still going to have the decision of the medical option. The messages reveal someone grasping at connection, at hope, at love. In the following days, Allie described drinking extreme amounts of alcohol, a full bottle of tequila, 2 bottles of champagne, 7 beers, a glass of wine. Mohandi analyzed these messages with concern. That's a lot of alcohol to consume for somebody of her size. For many people, if not most people, my concern would be serious physical harm. Or it's being exaggerated to show Brandon, I'm self-destructive, come to my rescue. On Friday, July 12th, 1 week before Allie's murder, Brandon drove home to Fort Worth, Texas. That same day, Allie texted him photos of 2 more ambiguous pregnancy tests. Less than 48 hours later, Brandon posted something chilling on Snapchat, a photo of his .40 caliber pistol with the caption, "Finally taking my baby back to Oxford." During his drive back to Mississippi, Brandon left a digital trail that revealed his true intentions. He Googled how to get away with crimes, how to conceal crimes, planning and preparation, how to restrain people, how to lure them in. He did a search on Ted Bundy. Investigator Jared Bundren noted the disturbing pattern. If you sit there and go through all of his Google searches, he don't even really know how to work a gun. He was Googling specific ammo types and what button does what on a Glock pistol. Brandon's attorney later tried to explain away the searches, suggesting they were related to TV shows and general interest, but prosecutors saw them differently as a roadmap to murder. Thursday, July 18th, shortly before 2 in the morning, Allie texted Brandon a photo of her stomach. The following day, Friday the 19th, the day before her death, Brandon texted Allie, "Are you going to be home today? Because I could visit." Almost 2 hours later, Allie sent another photo with this message. "Like, it isn't like I'm not that small anymore and I can pretend I'm fat right now, but I don't know it's getting hard." After a few more exchanges, Brandon asked the question that now seems so sinister. "Just let me know when you are back from going out. Is your house private right now?" District Attorney Ben Creekmore later explained the horrifying irony. Text messages from him to her were asking, "Is it a good environment? Are your friends going to be there?" And you could assume that she's thinking he wants to talk about the pregnancy issue and work on the relationship. In his mind, he's thinking, "I don't want any witnesses when I get her in the car with me." Minutes before midnight, a security camera captured Allie walking out of a bar in Oxford Square, alone but not worried. Around 1:30 in the morning, Brandon picked her up. They drove to Sardis Lake, a 30-minute journey into darkness. Once you turn off the paved road onto the dirt road leading to the abandoned fish camp at Sardis Lake, it's another 10 minutes through complete darkness. No houses, no people, nothing. Investigators found 11 shell casings on the ground around a picnic table where cans of White Claw hard seltzer sat. Ballistics told the story. Brandon was sitting across from Allie at the table. He fired 1 shot. Then, as Allie tried to run or crawl away, he circled the table, firing with every movement she made. 10 more shots. 1 round even hit the table. "He circled her," Bundren said, and with every move, he fired. Then Brandon just left her there, in the pitch-black darkness, 30 miles from campus, alone. 24 hours after discovering Allie's body, investigators knew they needed to talk to Brandon Thesefeld. They called late Saturday, early Sunday morning, asking him to come in for an interview. Brandon made excuses all weekend about why he couldn't meet. Finally, he agreed to come Monday morning at 8:30. 8:30 came, no Brandon. That's when investigators started tracking his phone in real time. They discovered he was on Interstate 55, headed north toward Memphis, the route someone would take to get from Oxford to Texas. With Brandon appearing to flee, investigators got an affidavit of arrest for murder and issued a bolo be on the lookout. Within an hour or two, the Memphis Fugitive Task Force spotted Brandon at a gas station. His truck had custom license plates that read Takes. Hard to miss. A dash cam captured the arrest. Police immediately noticed biological evidence on Brandon's clothing and a .40 caliber gun in his truck, consistent with the shell casings found at the crime scene. Brandon invoked his right to an attorney, but he signed a waiver of extradition, and investigators brought him back to Mississippi. Investigators learned that Brandon had been all over Oxford that weekend, acting completely normal. Saturday, he stayed with friends, they went bowling, just casual stuff. But Sunday, he brought something unusual to a friend's house. His gun. The friend later told police Brandon came in carrying the weapon, unloaded it inside the house, brought in a 6-pack of beer, and they sat for a while. When the friend woke up Monday morning, Brandon was gone. While Brandon wasn't talking to police, his attorney Tony Freeze eventually learned more about Brandon's background. He'd had a life full of promise. Good Christian family, loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, soccer player, never been in a fight at school, no history of violence, but something had changed. During a search of Brandon's apartment, investigators recovered a letter apparently written by Brandon the weekend Allie was found dead. Prosecutors called it a confession. In the letter to his parents, Brandon wrote that he'd always had terrible thoughts. "This is the end for me. I'm either going to prison or going to die." He also wrote, "I know I'm going to get caught." Tony Farese argued it was more than just a confession, it was also a farewell note. He writes a goodbye note to his family, tells them that he loves them, apologizes for what he's done. I am told by Brandon that he has the weapon raised to himself and then passes out. In August of 2019, the case was presented to a grand jury. The evidence included pictures of the gun and shell casings and the letter. The grand jury handed down an indictment: capital murder. Brandon faced the death penalty for kidnapping and murdering Allie. The charge rocked Oxford to its core. They take in these people, they're one of their own, for 4 years, 5 years, however long you're here, said local reporter Jake Thompson. And so it was tough for both the university and the citizens of Oxford. In late September, Brandon appeared in court to enter a plea, not guilty. The big question everyone asked was, why? Why did it happen? As prosecutors built their case, they hoped the hundreds of text messages between Allie and Brandon would provide insight. What they found was heartbreaking. "We know more about what he may have been thinking, and we know more about what she may have been thinking," said Assistant District Attorney Mickey Mallett. What was the relationship between these two? Well, that might be different depending on who you ask. From Brandon's attorney's perspective. From Brandon's standpoint, it was a casual, intimate relationship. They were never boyfriend and girlfriend. They didn't go on dates. He didn't pick her up, take her anywhere out to dinner, none of that. But Brandon would tell Allie he wasn't good enough for her, which is why they couldn't be together. Morgan and Elizabeth saw it as manipulation. He definitely manipulated her, they said. "We were just upset with how if she would show us texts from him or tell us things he would say that were really unkind to her." Even Allie's mother, Cindy, noticed something strange. Allie never discussed Brandon over time, never mentioned he was in the scene at all. "See, that's the thing. She's told me everything in life," Cindy said, "but never discussed him." Cindy and Keith say they haven't read their daughter's text conversations uncovered by investigators. "I don't know if I can," Cindy admitted. But the messages from April through July reveal Allie's growing anxiety about pregnancy. Whether Allie was actually pregnant remains unclear. The home pregnancy tests were inconclusive. Allie's autopsy showed she was not pregnant at the time of her death. However, according to a text message Allie sent Brandon in early July, she had been bleeding and believed something was wrong. There was evidence that could indicate she had a miscarriage. Morgan believes Allie was pregnant at some point. "I do," she said. But prosecutors ultimately couldn't be certain. The results were inconclusive, so we really just aren't sure, they admitted. Brandon's attorney shared what Brandon claimed happened at Sardis Lake. According to this account, Brandon had been drinking all day. Allie had been drinking. They were listening to music at the picnic table. Brandon had illicit substance. He went to his truck, used some substances, came back to the table. Then Brandon says he went back to his truck, grabbed his pistol, and fired a shot across the lake. Allie said, "You're crazy." They sat and talked. Then, according to Brandon, he shot her. Why? It just came out of nowhere, Farese said. Out of nowhere? Brandon had Googled how to commit crimes, researched Ted Bundy, brought a gun back from Texas, and lured Allie to a remote location. But his attorney claimed it wasn't planned. "I don't think Brandon would have been in this situation, but for his choice of consuming alcohol and then using substances," Farese argued. "So you're saying in that moment, under the influence of alcohol and narcotics, he snapped?" he was asked. "That's what I'm saying. It was out of rage. Rage for what? Maybe he thought he was going to be a father and he wanted to end it his own way." Prosecutors saw it completely differently. There was a lot of planning on Thesefeld's part about what he was going to do, they argued. Pretty good indication that he was looking for a remote location so her body would not be discovered. "No doubt in your mind that this was premeditated?" Creekmore was asked. "No doubt." "Heat of passion?" "No. It's cold and calculated." This was calculated over a very extended period of time, which is why it was capital murder. In Mississippi, capital murder means another felony crime was involved. In this case, prosecutors said that crime was kidnapping. They believed Brandon lured Allie into his truck under the guise of working the relationship out when he had a .40 caliber pistol and had planned her murder all along. Brandon's attorney disagreed. They were going to have to show that we kidnapped Allie. She voluntarily gets in the truck. They're going to try to say that we tricked her. That's a very, very big stretch. With Brandon facing a possible death sentence and prosecutors knowing a capital murder trial would be grueling, emotional, and risky for everyone involved, they presented the defense with an offer. On August 27, 2021, Brandon Thesefeld, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Allie's family and friends filled the courtroom wearing her favorite color, pink. The judge sentenced Brandon to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Reporter Jake Thompson was there. We never saw emotion from him until the plea hearing where he spoke or read a little bit. He broke down in tears. That was the first time he showed emotion. Brandon's audio was muffled when he addressed the court, but his words were transcribed. There is no excuse for my actions. I have asked God for forgiveness, and I hope one day that you will find it in your hearts to forgive me. His attorney later said, Brandon stood up and accepted responsibility in open court. The realization of the consequences of his actions are very real and sobering. There is no parole for murder in Mississippi. Let me tell you, that is a terrible penalty. But when asked why Brandon killed Allie, Faris had no good answer. There is no justification for his conduct, and I believe no good explanation for what he did. He's impaired on alcohol, he's drunk, he's impaired on narcotics. Was he justified? Absolutely not. Did the allegation of pregnancy contribute to that? Certainly could have. Brandon told his attorney he doubted Allie was pregnant. But prosecutors point out the truth. Allie's pregnancy status didn't matter. What mattered was that Brandon decided she was a problem that needed to be eliminated. For prosecutors, Allie's story became a cautionary tale about dangerous relationships and missed warning signs. I can't imagine how there could be any way possible that Allie could have known that Brandon Thesefeld was capable of doing what he did to her, Creekmore reflected. If she had any idea that this is what this person was capable of, she would never have gotten in that truck. Morgan Hall agreed. I think love can blind us to certain things that other people can see that we can't. Brandon's mother released a statement through his attorney. When I heard Brandon was being spoken to by the police, I still had no single thought that it could be him. Now, after 2 years and knowing more of the details of their relationship, I'm heartbroken for every person this impacts and crushed that our son did not share with us any of the turmoil he was trying to manage. I encourage every parent to regularly sit down with their children, teenagers, young adults, and discuss with them that there will never be anything too big, too complicated, too out of control that they cannot tell you about. We will always pray for the family and friends of Allie Costello. Cindy and Keith Costello are holding on to their memories. It's the quietest moments that are the most haunting, Cindy said. She was my life, my everything. The couple had visited Allie at her apartment just days before her death. She wanted them to stay an extra day. She was having so much fun. Cindy cooked her home-cooked meals. They went shopping for beach-themed decor. They were making new memories. Just hours before Allie died, Cindy spoke with her on the phone. It was around 7 o'clock at night. Allie had just woken up from a nap because she'd had a test that day. What are you going to do tonight? Cindy asked. I'm going to go out with some friends, Allie replied. Those were the last words they ever shared. For Allie's friends, her legacy lives on in every sunset. So every time we see a sunset or a pink sunset, we're like, that's Allie, Morgan said. And we just try to live for her and bring her light into the world. Allie Costello was 21 years old when Brandon Thesefeld circled her at a picnic table in the darkness and fired 11 shots. She was a daughter, a friend, a dreamer who loved sunsets and believed in second chances. She gave someone her trust who never deserved it. She saw love where there was only manipulation. She hoped for a future that was stolen in the middle of the night at an abandoned fish camp where no one could hear her scream. This is her story. This is what happened when a college dream turned deadly. This is why we must pay attention, listen to the warning signs, and remember that some people are capable of pure evil even when they seem normal on paper. Brandon Thesefeld will spend the rest of his life in prison. Allie Costello will never see another sunset, but her light remains. In the memories of those who loved her, in the pink they wear to honor her, in the sky every evening when the sun goes down and the world turns beautiful colors, the colors Allie spent her life trying to capture. Pay attention to the Alice of the world, the bright, hopeful, loving young people who deserve protection, not predators. Because their lives matter, their dreams matter, their sunsets matter, and we must never forget them.